Right, shalom, shalom. First, I'd like to give all praises unto Yahweh, Hashem Yahweh Shai, Waharakah Kadash, and double honors unto your apostles and elders of Great Millstone. And honors to you brothers out there in the highways and the byways teaching this word in all sincerity and in truth. Now, you know, you got all this xenophobia growing in Europe, and people want to decide who's native and who's foreign. So in England now, you got a lot of these English people. As far as they're concerned, if you're not so-called white, you're not English. And so you got a lot of confusion because how do you identify people? Well, in this world, your identity they they differ race, which they don't even break race down correctly. They break race down based upon color, which that's not what race is. Your physical um description can be a clue, a major clue to your race, because most people of the same race share the same characteristics. It's just like if you look at a family, you see a mother, father, and the children, they will share very similar characteristics. If like my mom's side of the family, they have very specific characteristics, like, and same with my father's side of the family, they got very specific characteristics because they're related. All right. That's just how it is. So when it comes to people who share a relation, they tend to have very similar physical characteristics. So you could probably look at them and say, oh, it's just like a so-called Nigerian. You could look at a guy and say, oh, that guy looks like a Nigerian, and he more than likely he is, but he also might not be. All right. So it's not the end all and be all, but at the same time, your image can be a major clue as to your relation or to your actual race. But your actual race is based upon lineage. It's not based upon what you look like. Because you can have someone that doesn't necessarily share the same characteristics as the rest of his race or nation. Okay. So right now there's a lot of confusion in the world about what it is to be something, right? Like English, like what makes you English, right? What makes you French? What you see an image of here is the French national team, and it was a brilliant team, man, pure legends in the team, and many of those legends, like Zinedine Zidane, like Desari, I believe Turam, if I'm not mistaken, was Turam in this team as well. I'm sure Turam was in this team. Obviously, you got Henri, right? Now, Henri, his mother and father were from Martinique and Guadeloupe, which were two French owned islands in the Caribbean. So a lot of people from Martinique or Guadeloupe, they wouldn't really necessarily move to England or America. A lot of them moved to France because they already speak French, right? So if you look up Thierry Henry, it's gonna say what, a French football coach. He's considered to be French. He has French citizenship. He's considered to be French, even though his mother and his father were not considered to be French. Right? Let's hold it. Right. So you look up Thierry Henry, real bad boy, by the way. Listen, real bad man. Yeah, when it comes to that pitch, serious, bro. Legend. That's an early life. So Henry's Antillean heritage, so they say heritage. His father, Antoine, is from Guadeloupe, all right? And his mother was from Martinique. So these are two French islands in the Caribbean, meaning French speaking. They have a history of French colonization, but they weren't French. But Henri is considered French. He was born in France. He has French citizenship, and this is why he plays for the French team. Now, at the time when um, France won the '98 World Cup, there was a lot of so-called, French people who were upset because they said France didn't win the World Cup. Africa won the World Cup because of the amount of players that were in the French team, represent the French nation, who all had French citizenship, but their parents were not French. Look at Zinedine Zidane. Let's look up the legend himself. Man was bald when he was like 21. Zinedine Zidane, real bad man. All right, Zinedine Zidane. He's so-called North African. Zizou. All right, if you look it up here, where we at? He was born in France. Okay, that's why he's French. Zidane is of he is of the youngest of five siblings. Zidane is of Algerian. That's for Algerian, right? So his parents come from Algeria. You know, they had no real connection with France except for the fact that France had colonized uh um Algeria, as well as a lot of West and North Africa. Right, that's through the colonization period, and you know they moved to France, and they had Zinedine Zidane was born in France, and so now he's French. Not only that, he's a French legend. Okay, so is he really French? Well, this is the debate that people are having because you know you got the xenophobes now. They don't want to accept people now like this. I said, well, he's not really French. All right, but see, this is the confusion that this world has created because what the hell is a Frank? You know, what is an Englishman? What is a Scot? These terms have been watered down and diluted, and now people want it to mean what they want it to mean. All right. Um, I mean, here's an example here. It is Bakayo Saka. Now, he's English. Bakayo Saka, right? He's English, right? Right? But his parents are from Ghana. But yeah, he's born in England. You know, he don't know nothing about no Ghana. He might eat certain Ghanaian food because he grew up in a Ghanaian household, but he speaks like an English bloke, right? So they will say he's English. That's why he plays for the English team until he misses a penalty. Then he's a monkey and he needs to get out of the country. All right. And so you got confusion because he's a British citizen. He's English, right? He's got all the paperwork. He has all the rights, the rights that is afforded to someone who is English or who is British. All right, so this is the confusion that this world has created because in reality, right, your nationality is supposed to be who your father is, and you are not supposed to be able to latch on to anything else. These false identities that they've created in the world. All right. Now, it is true that if people lived in a particular land, they would be called by that land. But then it would be understood what their actual nationality is, even though they'll say, okay, that guy, he's living in Egypt, so he's an Egyptian. But they would know, but really, his pedigree is, and they'll be able to identify, oh, he's actually an Israelite, or he's, you know, because that's his pedigree. And this is where the confusion is that no one truly knows their pedigree, right, in this world, right? Because no one's going by pedigree, all right? It's all by these false nationalities and these identities, all right? So if we go into the Bible, right, your pedigree or your nationality is based upon your father, right? The seed of Adam was divided by men. So if you go into the book of Genesis, the 10th chapter, it tells you about the different nations being formed. These nations were formed by having a patriarch, a particular man, and anyone who descended from that man was now of that pedigree. So, for example, here you got the sons of Ham, right? You got Cush, Mizraim, Put, and Canaan. So these nations were formed at that time, and Cush would be the patriarch. So if your father's line goes back to Cush, then you're a Cushite, plain and simple. If your lineage don't go back to Cush through your father's lineage, then you're not a Cushite. Then your lineage would have to go back to another patriarch, right? And the patriarchs are clearly defined in the Bible: Cush, Mizraim, Put, Canaan. These are patriarchs. Israel, Esau. These are patriarchs. Ishmael, all right. Moab, Ammon. These are patriarchs in the Bible that formed nations, and from them, all peoples received their pedigree. All right. And then they went into lands, and the lands were named after them. Okay. It says these are the families of the sons of Noah after their generations in their nations, right? The nations is according to the patriarch. And by these were the nations divided in the earth after the flood. So for instance, when it comes down to being an Israelite, you can only be an Israelite if your father's lineage goes back to uh, um, Israel, goes back to Jacob. All right. If you just born in the land of Israel, doesn't make you an Israelite, doesn't make you of the pedigree. Do you understand? All right. Doesn't make you of that pedigree. So this is Numbers 1 and start from 20. Uh, yeah. Right, Numbers 1 and 18. It says, and they assembled all the congregation together on the first day of the second month, and they declared their pedigrees, right? Your pedigree after their families by the house of their fathers. So it's not by your mother. Your pedigree is not determined by your mother, it's determined by your father, according to the number of the names from 20 years old and upward by the polls. So your pedigree is determined by your father, right? Not by where you were born, but who you were born from, who is your father's line, right? Pedigree, genealogical table or chart, right? So it's your genealogy according to your father's line. And you trace it back to a particular patriarch, and that is your people. That is your nationality. All right. Now a lot of people are confused about that because they got different notions of race and nation and all these different things. But when you peel it all back, your race and your nation is the same thing. Nation comes from natal, meaning that which you are born, right? Your seed, which is of your father and your father's father. So right now, what we're having is in these different nations, you got a bunch of people who've been put together and identify as the same nation, but in actual fact, they all have different pedigrees that don't really belong together. And America is a prime example of that. America is considered a nation. You can be American, but within that designation of being an American, there are all almost every different pedigree or nation of people in a melting pot being put together. And it's not going to be like that in the kingdom of heaven. In the kingdom of heaven, the nations are going to be separated onto their own inheritance as it should be. All right. Clearly defined heritages and pedigrees as opposed to what it is right now. These nations that you have today are an amalgamation of different peoples living together. Now, there might be one dominant people in that land who are of the same pedigree, but like I said, everyone else is mixed in and mixed around. And that's why everyone's confused. So now we're having arguments about who's English and who ain't English and what makes you English. All right. But in the kingdom to come, we ain't gonna have all these arguments because everybody's gonna know their pedigree. They're gonna know who you come from, and that is who you are. That's the core of who you are. That's the foundation of who you are, whether it be an Israelite, whether it be an Edomite, whether it be a Moabite, Ammonite, on down, whatever nation you're from, that you're going to be defined by your pedigree and not by where you were born or who or what you look like. All right, because this, even when you get into race, this idea of race also groups of people together that might not be the same pedigree. Because they'll say a Hamite because they look Negroid is the same as a Judite who looks Negroid. But you can get an Israelite that looks like all the different nations. So what? If you could be an Israelite and look like a Moabite, but if your lineage goes back to Jacob, then your pedigree goes back to Jacob, then you're actually an Israelite. Doesn't matter what you look like. And so this world right now is a world of confusion. The inheritances, the laws, everything is out of order. But in the world to come, all these things are going to be placed back into their proper order. And all this confusion is going to be done away with. Because I'll give you an example. You're not supposed to be really on no team, because the term team actually means your race, right? You look up the word team. The word team is your own family or tribe or native stock. And so this is where the confusion comes, because this is not really a true team, because you got people of different tribes, different nationalities, different pedigrees together on the same team. Then it's not really a team. It's a false it's a false corporate team. It's a corporation, like a co-op, because this isn't how it's supposed to be. And I'm not doing it based on what they look like. It's based upon pedigrees, because it's like whoever's born there. Well, different people of different pedigrees can be born in the same place. That doesn't necessitate to them to be on the same team, you know. So yeah, man, this place is whacked out, and it's out of course. And the Lord's gonna come and put everything back in its proper order again. So just understand that biblically, your race, your nationality, your pedigree is determined by the patriarch that your father's lineage goes back to. With that, I'm gonna say shalom.